I never try and put a limit or a box on how a song should sound or what it should say, or if we get on a feeling or a vibe or even a word or a phrase, I'm like, okay, like how should it sound? So I kind of let the song or the idea dictate that. It's not even really boiled down to what I do as an artist.
Between the Grooves is hosted by James Kurtis, music director and morning man in the Greater Toronto Area on Joy Radio. Hosts James Kurtis talk to artists and industry insiders to discover the connection between music and faith. You can connect with the show at faithstrongtoday.com/betweenthegrooves or via Twitter @betweengrooves.
We are back. Between the Grooves. James Kurtis.
Hey.
Aisha Woods is here. And how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I was off for a little bit on vacation a week or so ago, and I'm still getting caught up. You know, I can be away for 1 or 2 days, and I just get this mountain of work when I get back.
Right.
And I'm sure that's for a lot of people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The emails pile up, the voicemails.
Yep.
Usually just the emails, and it's not the emails you can just fluff off and get rid of. It's like you have to deal with them. So they sit in my inbox until I've dealt with them. And if there's one thing that drives me nuts is unread emails. And I'm still like that right now. So I'm still getting to all the emails. If you've emailed me and you're waiting for an answer, I apologize. I'm getting to it as quickly as I can.
Oh my gosh. You know what? A friend of mine showed me just last week how to go in and delete unwanted mail, like bulk style.
Sure.
Because I kid you not, I have about 4 email addresses on my phone. And when I turn it on, it shows how many emails I have.
Right.
Like, total.
Yeah.
It's like 30,000 emails. And I'm like...
Well, you better get to it.
It's crazy. So you had a little time off. You were given the retiree lifestyle tryout, a dry run.
Well, I'm many years away from that. Let's qualify that. But yeah, when I was off, I had no specific plan. So our plans earlier this year to celebrate my 25th wedding anniversary, I mentioned this to you. We were planning to get away and had this big vacation planned. It got canceled for various reasons. And, now the prices have skyrocketed, and I was just unwilling to pay more money for the same vacation. So
I hear you.
So we're pushing it off till next year. So I had a week off a week or so ago, and it was a staycation. And this time, like normally I have a list of things I want to get accomplished. And this time I decided I don't want to have this list hanging over me. Like there's a few things I'd like to do, but I didn't make any specific plans to go places, any overnights, even if it was local. My wife was still working. My son was working full time. My daughter was working a few days at the grocery store, and she's saving up for a year or 2 of university. So no specific plans. And at the end of the week off, what went through my mind was, this is what it must be like to be retired, right? Because you have no specific plans. I think we had a lunch date one day, and we had some small things, but most of the stuff was, we'll get to it when we get to it, or we'll decide the day of. And that's kind of the way it was. And it kind of thought, well, this must be what retirement is like, right?
Right.
So I don't want to be,
nice.
I don't want to be thinking that far in advance, because that's many years away. But it was, in that sense, it was a little interesting. So it's a disappointment in one sense, because I would have loved to get away somewhere.
Yeah.
Because when you don't get away somewhere, you've got all your regular chores, you've got your dishes, you've got your laundry and everything else. And when you get away, you're on vacation mode more, right?
Yes.
You're not worried about stuff like that.
You literally get away from it.
Right, right. And so I didn't get away from that, but I did get into the whole mode of sleep in.
Tell me what your sleep in time was, because you doing the morning show, like you're up at about 4?
No, I'm up at usually 2.
Oh gosh. Yeah. No, that's bedtime for a lot of people.
I know. So I'm normally up at 2, and my reasoning behind that is because morning is my time. So I'm not necessarily at work at 2. I'm up at 2. I'm at work by about 4:45 at the radio station, but I'm eating breakfast, grabbing a shower, brushing my teeth, and then it's kind of my social media time too. It's my quiet time, but also time to get caught up. What did I miss from the night before? I go to bed early. I go to bed at at 7 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So while I was off, it was going to bed maybe 10 or 10:30 because that's the time my wife goes to bed. And then getting up at 8 o'clock, 8:30 maybe. Like that's sleeping in for me, even on a weekend.
Wow. Okay.
And then sometimes I have these aspirations where I'm gonna sleep in even later than that. It just doesn't work for me because I'm so used to being up early anyways. And then I feel the day is wasted if I get up later. It's like, oh, what? By the time I eat breakfast, it's like, oh, it's that time already? Like I've just wasted 3 hours, right?
Right.
So that was kind of my time, and now it's, for the last week or so, it's been back to reality, getting caught up a little bit and getting into the regular groove of things. And between the grooves, you hear what I did there?
Between the grooves.
That was unintentional, but it worked.
It totally worked. I'm here trying to figure out. I'm bad about this. I'm getting better, but procrastinating a little bit. Mm-hmm. I've got to get everything for school ready. School goes back in for our crew next week.
Right.
So,
there's
around with that stuff.
It's never ending because you know that even when you get caught up and you get to the point where you're ready for them to go back, 2 weeks into it, you're still dealing with stuff, right? Now it's you got to sign this form, or you got to pay for this, or you got to do that. And I'm kind of glad I'm beyond that a little bit now. One child is not going back to school. The other is in university, but she's, it's all her, right? It's you take care of it. If you need my help, I'm there, but I don't have to sign forms. Yeah. She's old enough to do all that stuff. So it's nice when they get to that age.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was just getting ready to say. Must be nice. I think that's my my phrase for the day. Must be nice.
Must be nice. There you go. Well, I'll tell you what was nice though in the last few weeks is, summer music festivals are kind of wrapping up now with parts of North America going back to school and other parts sometime after Labor Day. But everybody's in that mode now of the summer wrapping up, which is a really disappointment for me because I love summer. But it has been a great experience, the fact that music festivals have been back because they haven't been around for a couple of years. So I had the opportunity recently to be at Kingdom Bound, and the highlight for me at Kingdom Bound is mingling with a lot of the artists and having conversations with them. And I bring all my audio gear with me, and if I can get an interview, and I use that in special quotes, of course, because again, they're not interviews, they're conversations. And so I had the chance to chat with a few of them. Now, the one guy that we're going to be featuring on today's episode of Between the Grooves is a guy that you have worked with and shared the stage with, Colton Dixon.
Yeah, such a good guy. And he's just incredibly talented and just gifted all around. I enjoy being able to sit in on his set and him on the piano, and just he's a really, really solid guy.
He's very talented. And the one thing I'll say about him, and you may hear this in the conversation I have with him, I thought for sure we had him on Between the Grooves previously, like way back in the beginning. And I was talking to somebody here in the office, and they said, no, I don't think he's ever been. And so I did some searching in our records, and I don't think he's been on Between the Grooves. And yet I remember having some sort of conversation with him at some point, but I guess it stretches back further. Yeah, so deja vu, or maybe I dreamt about it. I don't know. And that conversation we had a number of years ago was a great conversation. I'm sure of it. I just don't remember. But a great guy, really down to earth, and he's very talented. He really is talented. Yeah. And so in just a bit, we'll hear from him, talk a little bit about the pandemic, what family life has been like for him, and talk about some of his music.
He's got twins now.
Yeah, he's got twins, busy family life. And that's what we're going to talk about with Colton Dixon on Between the Grooves. It's episode 234, on location, on the road, on Between the Grooves.
Sure, yeah. Let them live a little bit of life first.
Yeah.
Before they come back again. That's smart. Yeah, I love that.
So for you, I mean, I'm sure you've been asked this question with regards to the pandemic. That kind of sucked.
Yeah, it wasn't the best time.
What did you do?
I was home, like pretty much everyone else. But it actually turned out to be a huge blessing in disguise for my wife and I, because my wife was pregnant during 2020.
Right. Yeah.
We welcomed twin girls into the world in August of 2020. So huge blessing in disguise that I was able to be home, because I would have been touring and on the road and wouldn't have had as much time with her.
That time of year too.
Man, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We would have been doing this in festival season. So huge blessing for us, and so thankful that I got to be home for that time, and even the first several months of the girls' lives was just so precious.
So they're a year old.
Yeah, they'll be 2 here in a couple weeks. It's wild.
So what is it like for them? Because that's a transition. They're used to dad being home, and now all of a sudden, where's dad all the time? Where does he go?
I know. What was kind of perfect is the rest of 2020 I was home pretty much the whole time, and then beginning of 2021 I actually went out with Skillet on a drive-in tour.
Yeah.
So they've already gotten used to dad being kind of in and out a little bit. But man, it's still I pray a lot harder about the shows that I do versus the ones I don't do, and I've learned that when I say yes to a show, I'm ultimately saying no to being at home with my family.
Right.
And it sounds kind of harsh, but it's just the truth. And so my wife and I really try and really think about the shows that I do, the tours that I take, and make sure it's the right thing, because if it's not right, then it's just not worth it. I'd rather be home with them. So, but I'm thankful that they are at least used to dad coming in and out, and my wife always makes it a point to celebrate, like, hey, like dad's going to work. That's awesome. Like, let's celebrate that, and which has been a huge help, even just on me, mentally, emotionally. So I'm thankful for that.
To put things in perspective, when my son was born, I was not working in radio. I was working in the business world, working in Toronto, but I had just signed a multi-million-dollar contract in Montreal, Quebec.
Wow.
And it meant I had to fly back and forth all the time.
Sure.
And it didn't really dawn on me how difficult life was for my wife.
Yeah, man.
Because I'm just trying to make money for the family. I'm trying to, pay the bills and stuff, but not realizing that me physically not being present is a big deal.
Man, they are superheroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife has got her parents, which help out a ton, which is a huge blessing. But still, I even just, adjusting to kind of doing what I want to do out on the road. If we feel like going to see a movie, we'll go see a movie or whatever. But at home with the kids, it's all hands on deck, right?
Yeah,
You kind of die to yourself, and you're now like, your kids' needs come before your own. So, but getting back and having that readjustment period, I'm like, man, I'm amazed at the amount of patience and grace that you have. It inspires the heck out of me. But she is, superhero, Wonder Woman in my book.
So my kids are older now.
Yeah.
My daughter is 18. My son is 21. And now they're at the age where, who cares?
Sure.
Not for me, but for them. Like, they could care less to spend time with me.
Sure. Yeah.
I can remember when my son was very, very young, and something really exciting for him was to watch me shave.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so now, as a joke, my son's 21 years old, and I'm going to go and shave, and then I say to my son, hey, I'm going to go shave. You want to watch? And he just kind of looks at me and kind of glares at me. It's just like, really? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean,
doesn't mean the same thing now.
Yeah, exactly. And if I'm going out somewhere, so a simple little thing. One of my weekend routines is just to fill up the my wife's car and my car with gas, so we're set for the weekend. It's just one of these mundane tasks that I really don't like to do, but I have to do.
Sure. Yeah.
Would anybody like to come with me? Nope.
Yep. Nope.
They don't want to spend time with me. They'd rather be gaming or hanging out with their friends or eating or whatever else, right? So you got to cherish those moments when they actually want you. Cherish the moments when you walk in the front door and they're running towards you, because that is a very short amount of time.
I know that day's coming. I hope it's prolonged and way in the distant future. But we're taking each day as it comes and soaking in as much as we can.
Yeah. So back to pandemic realities, that put a big dent in touring, obviously.
Yes, it did.
What happened with you is you were able to spend the time at home, but what did you do to pay the bills?
Man, that's a great question. I had a season before COVID where it kind of felt like I lost my job, got dropped by my record label and didn't know what the future looked like. But I kind of learned in that season that God really is Jehovah Jireh. He is our provider. Mm-hmm. And it's not our job title or what we do for a living or even the comfortability of whatever it is. If you believe it, it's like, all right, God's the source and he'll make a way, and I just need to continue doing what I know to do and be led by his Spirit. And so that's what we try to do. And not a lot made sense during that season for a lot of people. It's like, it was very clear to me that COVID and the pandemic was not of God, because his plans are to prosper us and to give us hope and a future. And that was the opposite of that. So I'm like, okay, well, I know where it comes from. It's like, but where we were like anxiously like looking. It's like, okay, where's the God counterpart in all this? Like, how is this going to turn around for our good? And man, it was just kind of wild. Checks would show up in the mail, whether radio stations across the country all at once decided, hey, we're going to play some old Colton Dixon music,
Right.
Or whatever. It kind of blew our minds. It's like, wow, awesome. I've never had a royalty check for this amount of money in my entire career, but thank you, God. This is so obvious where this comes from.
I don't know that I necessarily agree that obviously it wasn't God created, but I think God used it for his purpose. I think for some people, technology-wise and stuff, I think it pushed people into a direction that either they were scared to do on their own, but now forced to, whether it be, having a home-based business where they were scared to start their own business.
Sure.
But maybe they had no choice now to do what they actually loved, what their passion was.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was an opportunity for a lot of people, but I think the Bible boils down life into two categories. There's steal, kill, and destroy, and there's life and life more abundant. And when you look at the pandemic and COVID and political agendas and all these things.
What? There was that?
Yeah. By the way, just in case you were living under a rock, it's very clear to me what category those were in.
Right.
I absolutely think that he turns that which is meant for evil and turns it for our good.
Right.
Honestly, as I've gotten older, I've realized how much life is actually about perspective, and even our spiritual walk with God, right? He's always wanted to take us higher so we get more of a bird's eye view of what's really going on. And so I always just try and lean into that. I'm like, all right, God, like a song that I wrote in the pandemic was called Made to Fly, and it's about exactly that. It's like, all right, take me above all of this chaos, ridiculousness right now so I can see what this bigger picture is. And that's where we were made to be. We were made to live in that space. So, yeah, crazy season, but I think a lot of people took that by the horns and they grew from it, which is amazing.
Made to Fly wasn't really a typical Colton Dixon song.
Yeah, agreed. I got into the studio with some friends of mine, and I never try and put a limit or a box on how a song should sound or what it should say, or if we get on a feeling or a vibe or even a word or a phrase, I'm like, okay, like how should it sound? How should this lyric be delivered? So I kind of let the song or the idea dictate that. It's not even really boiled down to what I do as an artist. That's kind of why my songs are all over the place, honestly. You see us play live, we'll have piano ballads, we'll have hard rock songs, we'll have stuff with an urban edge to it, just kind of all over the place. But I love that because I'm like, okay, how best can we say this and deliver this message? And that's kind of how Made to Fly came about. It's like, how can we make this feel as free and as soaring, yet with still some conviction and maybe some I want people to grow as well. I want them to understand this concept. So I think we at least got in the ballpark with that. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of musical styles, I appreciate what you said about all these different styles and different, I wouldn't call it necessarily genres, but the way the song is performed or recorded or whatever else. There's a big band out there. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of them. They're called U2.
Oh, yeah. I've heard them a couple times.
And I really don't like them.
Really?
And the reason why is because in my opinion, every single song sounds the same. It's got the same kind of rhythm to it, the same little licks and whatnot. And so
similar.
Put them to something like Queen.
Yep.
Where every song sounds different.
Song's different. Yeah,
I would rather have every song sounds different. So a Colton Dixon on stage with every song sounding different is better than Colton Dixon and all the songs kind of blend into each other, I
will agree with my own career song choices, but I will have to agree to disagree on the U2.
Okay, well,
on the U2 side.
But don't you think they all sound the same though?
They definitely have a similar
They're good
thread.
songs.
Great songs,
Yeah.
but they absolutely, it's almost like they know what their palette is. And,
Sure.
and they take that same palette and apply it to all of their songs.
And I suppose if you
I'm
love
here for
U2,
it, though. Yeah.
if you love U2, that's fine. I just find that it's very, like, let's put it this way. If Made to Fly were playing against Build a Boat or some of your older songs,
Sure.
I'd have to second guess, oh, that's right, that's Colton Dixon.
Sure, yeah.
U2 plays like, that's U2.
It's definitely U2,
Yeah.
100%. I do think there are pros to that as well, because people hear a song and they automatically know that's who this is.
Sure.
So for me, what can be kind of tricky especially on radio, because you don't always get the, hey, this is Colton Dixon or whatever.
Right.
Somebody might know it's my song. People all the time come up to me after shows and they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't know you sang this song. I didn't know you did this song.
You just tell them it's a cover.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I'm going to have to adopt that. That's good.
So tell me about Build a Boat. Have you ever built one?
Yes.
Did you really?
I have, out of Legos.
Oh.
I've built 2 out of Legos.
Okay.
No, I've not actually built a real boat. I just interviewed a guy who built a ship.
Wow.
For an organization called Mercy Ships.
Yep.
Which think cruise ship, but they retrofit it to be hospitals and operating rooms, and they take that to third world countries for kids and for people who would never experience that kind of treatments.
And the people on those ships are missionaries, basically.
They're missionaries, yep. I believe they're donating their time. It's like they're there to be, they're giving back for sure. And they heard the song Build a Boat and were like, man, can we do something here? And we were all about it. So we just did something a couple weeks ago with them. Really excited about that. But man, Build a Boat, it doesn't take a genius to know that Build a Boat was inspired by the story of Noah. But what I love about this story and what I think Hollywood and the media gets wrong is they say that there was this big struggle or this big back and forth between Noah and God, and it's just not the way it was. The Bible says that God asked Noah to build an ark, and Noah was obedient. Period. That's it. And I just thought that was so beautiful and also so challenging for me and my own faith, thinking, wow, like when God asks me to do something really big, like in the natural makes zero sense, what is my response going to be? I want to be known as someone like Noah, whose response is yes. Let's do it. So yeah, like I think faith looks really crazy sometimes in the moment. I think that's why it's called supernatural sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that there's also a reward waiting on the other side of that crazy faith. I don't think God's just asking you to do something just because he feels like it. I think he's wanting to get something to you. Like your faith is what unlocks his ability to say, okay, cool, awesome. You came with faith. That's the only thing that pleases me. Boom, here you go. I've been waiting on you. So I want to do more and more and more of that. So the song is basically just a declaration, like, God, whatever it looks like, even if it looks like the most impossible circumstances, I'm going to build a boat in a desert because you promised rain. So let's do it.
So having said that, are you building anything right now in faith, or is that still coming?
Yeah, honestly, it was kind of a season, that season of me not having a label and trusting that God knew what he was doing, still feeling the call of music on my life, but not knowing what the atmosphere around me looked like. Took faith. It just did. And that may sound so easy. It's like, well, yeah, but you were already far along, whatever. It's like, I basically lost my job, so it was scary.
So when you're with a label, just clarification for the people that don't know this, when you're with a label, it's like having a business card and getting a regular paycheck.
Kind of, yeah. It's like
I'm trying to put this in the perspective of people that go and work a 9-to-5 job. Obviously, an artist, a performer, singer, worshiper doesn't have a specific job description or specific hours, right? Because you're working weekends and there's a lot of downtime, or what people perceive downtime, but you're actually writing or recording or whatever else. But at the end of the day, you've got regular income versus you're on your own now, buddy.
Sure, it can seem like that for sure. I think one of the biggest things that a label does is they're basically like a bank for musicians. They'll give you loans for albums and loans for music videos and all these things that, yes, you might recoup in the end, but they also have relationships with radio and with streaming and, you name it. Like, it's a network of people who are fighting on your behalf, right? And so when that goes away, you feel all alone. Even though you might not be, it feels that way. So all that to say, it was a very scary time, right? But we had to trust that God knew what he was doing, so we had to step out anyway. And this was just a year and a half before COVID started. So I started writing these songs out of that place, trusting that God was going to do with these songs what he needed to. And those songs came out right as the pandemic was hitting in April of 2020. And out of that scary place in my life went into all these other people who are experiencing a very similar place in their lives, losing their jobs or losing their livelihood or having to stay home and, whatever else it was. So I was so thankful for the timing of God. Still didn't mean it was a lot of fun in the process, but I'm so glad that we decided to do it anyway.
I was having a conversation, again, not to name drop or anything like that, but I was having a conversation with Ben Fuller,
Yeah.
I guess a week or two ago.
Love that dude.
Yeah. Talk about a genuine,
man.
tell it like it is type
Yep.
guy. And one of the things I mentioned to him is that I was in radio years ago. This was before there was Christian radio in Canada. You couldn't actually have a Christian radio station 25, 30 years ago.
Sure.
And it wasn't anything against Christianity. It was just you couldn't have any religious type full-time radio station.
Sure.
So I was living in that era where I was working at a secular radio station, having fun but not making any money. Finally quit because I couldn't
Sounds
afford it
familiar.
anymore. Exactly. I quit, and then I just basically, I had jobs that were decent jobs, but I hated my jobs.
Sure.
And I did that for 20 years. I was in this season for 20 years of doing something that I just hated and
Wow.
didn't want to do. And, long story short, my wife, we got married and everything else. She knew I wasn't happy, and she suggested, well, why don't you set up a little recording studio at home? I'm thinking, oh, that's cool. And so most Christians get an income tax return. You get some money back
Sure.
that you paid and stuff because of charitable donations and whatnot. So I convinced my wife, surprisingly, to use our income tax return to buy some equipment.
Amazing.
Cha-ching!
Yeah.
So set up this studio. My goal was really just to record my daughter singing. She's got a really good voice, and I never did do that. A week before the last piece of equipment showed up, there was something being shipped up from Florida. I got a request to do some voiceover work for a TV show
Sure.
out in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yeah.
And then it started, and then my wife says, well, if you're doing that, why don't you send off, your information to some Christian radio stations and see if they'll let you record some voiceover
Sounds
stuff.
like a smart lady.
Yep. And so so I did that, and one of them came back, said, oh, are you planning to move to our city and work out at our radio station? And I'm thinking, I never really thought of that.
Yeah.
And then I sent off my, you know what a demo tape, obviously,
Of
you're in
course,
music.
yeah.
So radio people have a demo tape as well. So I
Yeah.
sent my 20-year-old demo tape to Joy Radio in Toronto.
Yeah.
Never heard back.
Yeah.
About a month later, I thought, well, I better follow up. And I followed up with the program director, and he said, oh, didn't you get my email back? I said, no. He says, we were having some email problems that day. We're actually looking for somebody.
Wow.
And I started doing some, I was their swing announcer for a few years, then ultimately became the morning show guy. So
It's amazing.
talking about seasons, talking about faith, talking about, you're in the worst period of your life, or what you think is the worst period of life, and yet God is preparing you for this bigger thing.
I read
like building a boat.
Exactly. I read a sign at a beach, actually. I need to turn it into a country song. But it says, when you're down to nothing, God's up to something.
Yeah.
So God's always working something together behind the scenes. But I think it requires us stepping out of our own way or stepping out in faith to see what it is.
Or your wife's faith.
Or that's true.
In my case.
Hey, two become one flesh, baby. That's you too.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for that every single day. But yeah, like Peter never would have experienced walking on water if he wouldn't have stepped out of the boat.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's really important.
I know you got to go. Thanks for your time.
Oh my gosh, thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much. Really enjoyed the conversation.
I enjoyed it too. I never know. I was driving here with my equipment just seconds before and setting it up, thinking, I wonder what we're going to talk about.
Oh man,
And that's what it's like every time.
that's beautiful though.
But that's what I want.
yeah, that's
just
perfect.
so you know. So
I love that. Well, thank you.
That was awesome. I'm so glad that I had the chance to hear his voice again. I'm looking forward to maybe sitting in on another one of his sets in the near future. But if you want to check out more about Colton and his whereabouts, where he's touring and his music, go visit his website at coltondixon.com.
And I really enjoy those conversations that are on the road. You can hear all the
Yes.
background noise and stuff. That's how you know they're all genuine conversations. A lot of times these conversations are just so down to earth. They're not, he doesn't have cue cards in front of him with responses and
Right.
whatever. It's just a genuine down to earth conversation. So plan to bring you more of those in the coming weeks, highlighting some of the artists that we've had a chance to chat with at music festivals. And hopefully these music festivals continue past the summertime. Please continue.
Yes.
Especially in this day and age where, as Colton indicated, there hasn't been a lot of that in the last couple of years. So it's great that is all back. Well, it is time for some artist advice, and we check back in with Mac Brock.
I think the biggest thing that I try to tell worship leaders is to really get involved and love the people that are serving on your team. I think it gets easy for us in church ministry to focus on people as the roles that they fill. And we tend to like see people as just like, what can you do for the worship team? You're a guitarist. Okay, I just see you as the guitarist. And I just try to encourage people, like, really like invest in your team, build a community of people, and like love on them and create and build something that's beyond what's happening just, you know, on the weekends or at church service.
Such good advice.
You know what that reminds me of?
What's that?
It reminds me of your phone ringing, your cell phone or whatever, and you've got the call display and you see the name of the person calling and you just kind of cringe because you know that they're calling you for something. They want something from you, right?
Right.
I need help moving this weekend, or I need you to do this for me or do that for me. And that's what goes through my mind when Mac talks about looking at a guitarist on your team and what typically you would look at what they can do for you versus what you can do for them.
Yep.
And I think the worship team is a team. It needs to be a team, and you need to know these people. You need to interact with the people. You need to, you know, have coffee together, have a barbecue, family barbecue in the backyard or whatever, right? You need to have a relationship.
That's happening literally this week for our team, specifically our worship team and media team, because we have to pour back into these people. You know, we're family at the end of the day, and we're having an end of summer mixer just to fellowship, just connect and love on each other. And you've got to show value, you know? So that was even further confirmation for me. I'm glad that he shared that. Yeah. So many people need to hear that.
I guess,
so good.
I guess the concern I would have when you have a get-together like that, a social gathering, is it remains a social gathering, I guess is what I'm trying to say, as compared to, while everybody's here, let's have a meeting, right? You know what I'm saying?
We're going to eat good.
Yeah.
We're going to eat good and have some barbecue and laugh and maybe dance and just enjoy one another's company.
Right. That's the key, I think, is that whole relationship instead of it being, let's have a meeting or let's have a rehearsal or let's go over this or whatever else. No, just social time. Just
that's right.
That's it. Right. So there you go. Great advice and great words of wisdom from Mac Brock on Between the Grooves. And that is it for this week. We are out of time. Thank you for joining us on our on-the-road version of Between the Grooves with Colton Dixon. More of that to come as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Tell others about it as well. That just helps us reach more people, obviously. And follow us on Twitter and Facebook.